Silence often reveals more than noise. Some people walk through life without close friends, not because they are broken, but because their path is different. Stoic wisdom teaches us that value is not measured by crowds, but by character. Here are 5 traits often found in people who stand alone. Self-reliance over dependence is the quiet strength of standing on one's own feet. It begins when a person understands that life will not always offer support, comfort, or guidance. Stoic wisdom teaches that this is not a problem to fear, but a truth to accept. When help is absent, inner strength is called forward. Depending too much on others makes the mind weak and restless, always waiting, always hoping someone else will carry the weight. Self-reliance teaches the opposite lesson. Carry what is yours to carry. A self-reliant person does not reject others, but does not lean on them for identity or stability. The Stoic path reminds us that control lies within our thoughts, choices, and actions. Everything else is uncertain. Friends may leave, circumstances may change, and plans may fail. When life shifts, the one who depends on others for peace will suffer deeply. The one who depends on inner discipline remains steady. Self-reliance is built through facing discomfort instead of escaping it. When problems arise, the mind learns to respond instead of complain. Stoicism values action guided by reason, not emotion. Each challenge becomes a lesson. Each failure becomes training. Over time, trust in the self grows, not through pride, but through experience. Depending on others for constant reassurance weakens judgment. Stoic wisdom teaches that approval is outside our control. Seeking it creates anxiety. A self-reliant person listens to advice but decides with reason. Choices are made based on values, not praise or fear of rejection. This brings freedom. When decisions come from within, regret loses its power. Self-reliance also means taking responsibility for emotions. Blame is no longer placed on others. Anger is examined, not released without thought. Sadness is acknowledged, not hidden behind distraction. Stoicism teaches that emotions are natural, but reactions are a choice. By mastering this choice, the mind becomes strong and clear. This strength does not appear overnight. It grows slowly, through solitude, discipline, and patience. Silence becomes a teacher. Time alone reveals weaknesses and strengths honestly. Without constant voices from others, the mind learns to speak clearly to itself. Stoic thinkers believed that a person must be able to sit with their own thoughts without fear. This ability is the foundation of self-reliance. Self-reliance removes the need to control others. When inner stability exists, there is no urge to manipulate, please, or cling. Relationships become calmer and more honest. Stoicism does not reject human connection, but it warns against emotional dependency. True connection is strongest when 2 whole individuals meet, not when one is leaning to survive. Life often tests this trait through loss, isolation, or failure. Stoic wisdom sees these moments not as punishment, but as training. When external support falls away, the inner world must rise. Each test strengthens confidence in one's ability to endure. Over time, fear of being alone fades, replaced by trust in one's own character. Self-reliance brings simplicity. Needs become fewer, desires become clearer. The mind is less crowded with expectations. Stoicism teaches that happiness does not come from gaining more, but from needing less. A self-reliant person is content with enough, calm with little, and steady in uncertainty. This trait shapes how one faces the future. Instead of worrying about who will help, the focus shifts to what can be done now. Energy is spent on effort, not anxiety. Stoic wisdom teaches that the present moment is all that truly belongs to us. When a person relies on their own reason and discipline, each moment becomes manageable. Self-reliance is not hardness of heart, but firmness of mind. It allows compassion without weakness, connection without fear, and solitude without loneliness. It is the quiet knowledge that whatever happens, the self remains capable of facing it, learning from it, and moving forward with calm resolve. Calm control of emotions begins with understanding that emotions are natural, but they are not rulers. Stoic wisdom teaches that feelings arise on their own, yet our response to them is a choice. Anger, fear, sadness, and joy visit the mind like weather. They come and they go. Peace is found not by stopping them, but by refusing to be carried away by them. A person who lacks emotional control becomes a servant to impulses. Words are spoken in haste, actions are taken in regret, and the mind remains restless. Stoicism teaches the value of pause. Between emotion and action, there is a moment where reason can step in. This small space is where strength lives. Learning to use it takes practice and patience. Calm control does not mean suppressing emotions or pretending they do not exist. Stoic wisdom encourages observation instead of denial. When anger appears, it is examined. When fear rises, it is questioned. The mind asks whether the situation is truly within control or outside it. If it is outside control, worry is useless. If it is within control, action replaces panic. Many emotions grow stronger when fed by imagination. The mind creates stories, expects harm, or relives past pain. Stoicism teaches discipline of thought. By focusing only on what is real and present, emotional storms lose their power. A calm mind sees events clearly, without exaggeration or judgment. Emotional control is learned through repeated effort. Each day presents chances to practice. A harsh word, a delay, a mistake, or a loss all become training. Instead of reacting, the Stoic mind responds. This response is guided by reason, not emotion. Over time, reactions soften, and calm becomes natural. Fear is one of the strongest emotions to master. Fear often comes from imagining future pain. Stoic wisdom reminds us that the future is uncertain and not yet real. Suffering in advance only doubles pain. By returning attention to the present moment, fear weakens. The mind learns to handle what is in front of it, not what may never happen. Anger is another emotion that demands control. Anger promises power but delivers weakness. It clouds judgment and damages character. Stoicism teaches that anger is a temporary madness. By delaying response, anger loses strength. Silence becomes a shield. Reason becomes a guide. Calm preserves dignity. Sadness and grief are treated with honesty, not resistance. Stoic wisdom allows sorrow but warns against drowning in it. Loss is part of life, and acceptance eases pain. By understanding that change is natural, the mind learns endurance. Tears may fall, but despair is not allowed to rule. Calm control of emotions creates inner stability. External events lose their ability to disturb the soul. Praise does not inflate the ego, and insult does not crush it. Stoicism teaches balance. When emotions are kept in check, clarity increases, and decisions improve. This calm also affects relationships. A controlled mind listens better, speaks with care, and reacts with fairness. Conflict decreases because emotion no longer demands victory. Understanding replaces hostility. Respect grows naturally when emotions are guided by reason. Emotional control is closely tied to self-awareness. By watching thoughts and feelings, patterns become clear. Triggers are recognized early. The Stoic mind prepares itself before emotions grow strong. Preparation prevents regret. Calm control does not remove passion for life. Instead, it directs it wisely. Joy becomes steady instead of extreme. Satisfaction replaces excitement. Stoic wisdom teaches that true happiness is quiet and stable, not loud and fragile. Through discipline, reflection, and patience, the mind becomes a steady place. Emotions continue to arise, but they no longer command. Reason holds the reins, guiding action with clarity and restraint, allowing life to be faced with balance, dignity, and inner strength. Strength, built through solitude, grows in the quiet moments where no one is watching and no one is speaking. When a person is alone, there is no audience to impress and no noise to hide behind. Stoic wisdom teaches that solitude is not emptiness, but space. In that space, the mind is forced to meet itself honestly. Many fear being alone because silence reveals thoughts that distraction keeps hidden. Yet this discomfort is exactly where strength begins. Without constant company, the mind learns endurance. It learns to sit with unease without escaping it. Stoicism values this ability because a person who cannot be alone cannot be free. Solitude removes dependence on external validation. When there is no one to approve or disapprove, actions must come from inner values. Stoic thought teaches that virtue is practiced for its own sake, not for praise. Alone, a person learns whether their principles are real or only performed for others. Time spent alone sharpens self-awareness. Habits, weaknesses, and fears become clear. There is no one else to blame, no one else to distract responsibility. Stoic wisdom teaches acceptance of the self as it is, not as it appears in public. This acceptance is the foundation of improvement. Solitude trains emotional resilience. Without immediate comfort from others, emotions must be managed internally. Sadness, boredom, and anxiety arise, and the mind learns to handle them without panic. Stoicism teaches that emotions lose power when faced calmly. Each moment of quiet endurance strengthens the inner core. Solitude also strengthens focus. Without interruptions, attention deepens. Thought becomes clearer. Stoic philosophers believe that reflection is necessary for wisdom. Alone, the mind can examine actions, correct errors, and plan improvement. This regular self-examination builds discipline and clarity. Being alone removes the pressure to conform. In solitude, there is no need to match opinions or follow trends. Stoicism values independence of thought. When the mind is free from social influence, it can choose reason over habit. This leads to a stronger sense of identity rooted in values, not popularity. Solitude teaches patience. Time passes more slowly when alone, and the urge for stimulation becomes obvious. Stoic wisdom encourages acceptance of time as it is. By resisting the need for constant entertainment, the mind learns contentment with simplicity. This patience carries into all areas of life. Strength built through solitude prepares a person for loss and change. When relationships shift or end, the one who has learned to stand alone does not collapse. Stoicism teaches readiness for change as a natural part of life. Solitude acts as training for uncertainty. Quiet moments also reveal what truly matters. Without outside voices, desires become clearer. Some goals fade, others grow stronger. Stoic thought teaches that many desires are borrowed from others. Solitude returns ownership of purpose to the self. Solitude does not reject connection, but it purifies it. When a person is comfortable alone, relationships are chosen, not needed. Stoicism teaches that healthy bonds come from strength, not fear of loneliness. This leads to calmer, more honest interactions. Strength formed in solitude is calm, not aggressive. It does not seek attention or dominance. It appears as steadiness under pressure and clarity in decision-making. Stoic wisdom values this quiet strength above outward success. Through regular solitude, the mind becomes familiar with itself. Thoughts are no longer frightening. Silence becomes a companion instead of an enemy. In this quiet, discipline forms naturally, resilience deepens, and the individual learns to rely on reason rather than noise, comfort, or constant presence of others. Deep thinking and reflection arise when the mind is allowed to slow down and observe, rather than react. Stoic wisdom teaches that most suffering comes not from events themselves, but from unexamined thoughts about those events. A reflective mind learns to separate what happens from the meaning assigned to it. This separation brings clarity and calm. Many people live on the surface of life, moving from one reaction to the next. Stoicism encourages stepping back. Reflection creates distance between impulse and judgment. In that distance, reason can speak. A thoughtful person does not rush to conclusions, knowing that haste often leads to error. Deep thinking begins with questioning assumptions. The Stoic mind asks whether beliefs are true or simply inherited from habit, culture, or fear. By examining ideas carefully, false expectations are removed. This practice reduces disappointment, because the mind no longer demands life to behave in a certain way. Reflection also brings awareness of control. Stoicism teaches a clear division between what can be controlled and what cannot. Through regular thought, this distinction becomes sharp. Energy is no longer wasted on events outside influence. Effort is directed inward, toward character and response. A reflective mind learns from experience instead of repeating mistakes. Each action is reviewed, not with self-blame, but with honesty. Stoic wisdom encourages daily examination of conduct. What was done well is noted. What was done poorly is corrected. This practice builds steady improvement. Deep thinking strengthens emotional balance. When emotions arise, reflection asks why. Instead of being overwhelmed, the mind observes patterns. Over time, triggers lose their surprise. Stoicism values awareness as the first step to mastery. Reflection reduces fear by bringing reality into focus. Fear often feeds on vague thoughts and imagined outcomes. By thinking clearly, threats are measured accurately. Many worries dissolve under examination. The Stoic mind does not ignore danger, but refuses to exaggerate it. Deep thinking also builds humility. Reflection reveals limits, mistakes, and imperfections. Stoicism teaches acceptance of human nature. This acceptance removes the pressure to appear perfect and replaces it with the desire to improve quietly. A reflective person speaks less and listens more. Words are chosen carefully. Stoic wisdom teaches that silence often holds more value than speech. By thinking deeply before speaking, conflict is reduced and understanding grows. Reflection strengthens purpose. When life is examined regularly, actions align more closely with values. Stoicism teaches that living without reflection is living without direction. Thought gives shape to intention, and intention gives meaning to effort. Through deep thinking, the mind becomes less reactive to praise and blame. Both are seen as external opinions, not measures of worth. Stoic wisdom teaches independence of judgment. Reflection reinforces this independence by returning attention to principles instead of emotions. Deep thinking encourages patience. Understanding takes time. Stoicism teaches respect for gradual progress. Reflection reminds the mind that growth is not rushed but built through consistent effort. The habit of reflection creates inner order. Thoughts become organized. Priorities become clear. Distractions lose power. Stoic wisdom values order within because it leads to calm without. Reflection also deepens gratitude. By examining life honestly, small things gain importance. Stoicism teaches appreciation for what is present rather than longing for what is absent. Thought turns attention towards sufficiency instead of lack. Through deep thinking and reflection, the mind learns to guide itself. Choices become deliberate. Reactions become measured. Life becomes less chaotic and more intentional. Stoic wisdom uses reflection as a tool to refine judgment, strengthen character, and maintain balance in an ever-changing world. Freedom from approval is a strength cultivated when the mind learns to act according to its own reason, rather than the expectations of others. Stoic wisdom teaches that seeking approval is a form of dependence, a subtle surrender of power. When a person relies on the praise or acceptance of others for confidence, their inner peace becomes fragile. True freedom comes when validation is turned inward, toward principles and values, rather than applause or criticism. Many people spend their lives performing for an audience, shaping words, actions, and even thoughts to fit what others might admire. Stoicism observes this as a trap. The mind becomes restless, chasing approval that is uncertain and temporary. A person who lives in this way is never truly at ease. External opinions fluctuate constantly, yet the soul must remain steady. Freedom from approval removes this burden. To cultivate this freedom, the first step is self-awareness. Stoic wisdom emphasizes honest examination of motives. Are choices made because they are right, or because they are likely to be praised? By recognizing dependence on approval, a person can begin to shift focus inward. Actions can be guided by reason, not by the fleeting judgment of others. Freedom from approval also requires courage. It is uncomfortable to act differently from what society expects, or to speak when others might disapprove. Yet Stoicism teaches that courage is the companion of virtue. Acting rightly, even when unnoticed or misunderstood, strengthens character. The mind learns that integrity is its own reward, far more durable than applause. This trait grows through consistent practice. Small choices each day can reinforce independence from approval. Speaking the truth when it might offend, admitting mistakes without hiding them, or pursuing a path unrecognized by others, all are exercises in freeing the self from dependency. Each choice strengthens the mind, creating resilience against the influence of public opinion. Stoic wisdom also emphasizes that external judgment is beyond control. Seeking approval is, therefore, chasing what cannot be held. A person may be praised one day and criticized the next. Both are irrelevant to inner virtue. Freedom from approval shifts attention from what others think to what reason dictates. This shift creates clarity, calm, and confidence that are unaffected by popularity or rejection. This independence does not mean rejecting human connection. Relationships remain valuable, but they are chosen rather than needed. Stoicism teaches that connection built on necessity is fragile, while connection built on choice is stable. When approval is no longer required for self-worth, relationships can be more honest, respectful, and peaceful. Freedom from approval also fosters focus. The mind is no longer distracted by imagined judgments. Time and energy are spent on effort, learning, and growth, rather than on performance and impression management. Stoicism teaches that life is short and should not be wasted on pleasing others at the cost of one's own principles. With freedom from approval, criticism loses its power. Feedback is observed without fear, praise is received without pride, and neither dictates behavior. Stoic wisdom shows that the mind is safest when it rules itself, guided by reason rather than external validation. The soul becomes resilient, capable of maintaining stability in a world full of shifting opinions. This independence creates inner peace. Anxiety that comes from social comparison fades. Decisions are made calmly. Actions are measured. Thought is deliberate. Stoicism teaches that self-sufficiency in judgment leads to freedom, and freedom leads to tranquility. The mind becomes steady because it no longer wavers under the weight of others' expectations. By practicing detachment from approval, the individual develops confidence rooted in truth rather than appearance. Each act done rightly reinforces this trust. Each choice, made according to values rather than applause, strengthens the foundation of the self. Stoic wisdom sees this as essential for a life of calm, clarity, and enduring strength, free from the chains of others' opinions. Purpose over popularity is the quiet choice to live by meaning, rather than by applause. Stoic wisdom teaches that life's value does not come from being admired or accepted by many, but from acting in accordance with one's principles. Popularity is fleeting, changeable, and dependent on the whims of others. Purpose, however, is internal, steady, and guided by reason. A person who prioritizes purpose aligns actions with what is right, not what is admired. Many people chase approval or recognition, shaping themselves to fit expectations. Stoicism observes that this leads to emptiness because the mind becomes dependent on others' opinions. Popularity is an external measure, fragile and unpredictable. By contrast, purpose comes from understanding one's values and responsibilities. It is a compass that directs life regardless of external response. To embrace purpose over popularity, self-awareness is essential. The Stoic mind examines motivations carefully. Is an action chosen because it is meaningful, or because it will be praised? By distinguishing between these, the individual can act with integrity. Decisions guided by purpose are less likely to falter, because they are anchored in reason rather than applause. Living with purpose requires discipline. Popularity tempts the mind with easy approval and immediate gratification, but true purpose often demands effort, patience, and sometimes sacrifice. Stoicism teaches that short-term discomfort is preferable to long-term compromise. Acting according to principle may not gain approval today, but it builds character and resilience that endure. Purpose also gives clarity in difficult choices. Life is full of competing demands and distractions. When popularity is prioritized, decisions are reactive, made to satisfy expectations rather than reason. When purpose is prioritized, each choice is measured against internal values. This brings focus, reduces confusion, and allows steady progress in meaningful directions. A life guided by purpose fosters inner peace. The mind is no longer swayed by praise or criticism, which are unpredictable and irrelevant to virtue. Stoic wisdom emphasizes that tranquility comes from aligning action with reason. Popularity can never guarantee peace. It is external and fragile. Purpose provides a foundation that remains firm under challenge. Prioritizing purpose over popularity also improves relationships. Connections are built on respect, shared values, and honesty rather than superficial appeal. Stoicism teaches that genuine bonds require truth, not performance. By focusing on purpose, interactions become deeper and more authentic, while dependency on social validation fades. Purpose over popularity encourages long-term vision. Popularity is concerned with immediate attention, fleeting trends, and temporary admiration. Purpose considers enduring impact and personal growth. Stoic thought values what lasts beyond the moment, the habits, choices, and principles that shape a stable life. By living purposefully, the individual invests in what truly matters rather than what is ephemeral. This mindset strengthens courage. Acting according to purpose often requires standing against opposition or indifference. Stoicism teaches that courage is necessary to maintain integrity in the face of external pressure. Popularity tempts compromise, but purpose demands persistence. Each act of courage reinforces inner authority and moral clarity. Purpose also reduces regret. When actions are guided by meaning rather than approval, the mind can rest more easily. Mistakes are seen as lessons, not failures of social performance. Stoic wisdom teaches that life is to be lived intentionally, and reflection confirms whether effort aligns with values. This awareness builds confidence and reduces the sway of external opinions. By placing purpose above popularity, the mind becomes self-directed. Energy is focused on effort that matters, on learning, on growth, and on fulfilling responsibilities. Stoic wisdom values this focus because it produces results that endure. Popularity may fade, but purpose guides consistently, creating a life that is measured not by applause but by reason. Integrity and meaningful action. Discipline of the inner world is the foundation of strength and calm. Stoic wisdom teaches that external events cannot be fully controlled, but the mind can be trained. Thoughts, impulses, and desires are not enemies to suppress, but tools to guide. A disciplined inner world allows the individual to act with clarity, resist distractions, and maintain stability regardless of circumstance. Many people are governed by immediate reactions. Anger flares, fear spreads, or desire dictates action without reflection. Stoicism observes that such reactivity leads to unrest and poor judgment. Discipline of the inner world interrupts this cycle. It creates a space between stimulus and response, allowing reason to guide behavior. This space is where freedom is found, because a person is no longer a slave to impulses or external pressures. Discipline begins with awareness. The mind must notice its own tendencies, habits, and triggers. Stoic wisdom emphasizes that recognition is the first step toward control. By observing thoughts without judgment, the individual can identify patterns that lead to unnecessary suffering. Once these patterns are seen, they can be addressed through deliberate practice. Training the inner world requires consistent effort. Daily exercises in restraint, focus, and reflection strengthen the mind. This may involve pausing before speaking, controlling desires for immediate pleasure, or resisting anger in challenging situations. Each small act of self-discipline accumulates, creating a mind capable of responding calmly and wisely. Control of the inner world is closely tied to emotions. Stoicism teaches that emotions themselves are natural, but unchecked reactions are harmful. Discipline allows the mind to experience feelings fully, while preventing them from dominating behavior. Sadness, fear, and anger are observed and processed, not acted upon impulsively. Over time, this creates emotional resilience, making the individual less vulnerable to external disturbances. Desires and attachments are also refined through inner discipline. Many suffer because they cling to what is temporary or uncontrollable. Stoic wisdom encourages understanding the nature of impermanence. By aligning desires with what can be influenced, actions, and choices, the mind gains steadiness. Discipline trains the individual to seek fulfillment in what is meaningful rather than what is fleeting. Focus and concentration are strengthened within a disciplined inner world. A scattered mind follows distractions and loses energy. By practicing attention and clarity, Stoicism teaches that effort becomes more effective and life less chaotic. The mind learns to prioritize, to distinguish between what is urgent and what is important, and to act according to principle rather than impulse. Discipline also shapes character. Virtue is built through repeated, intentional practice. Stoic wisdom emphasizes that moral strength is not an abstract idea, but the result of consistent self-governance. Each decision guided by reason reinforces integrity, courage, and patience. The inner world becomes a reflection of values, steady and reliable even when the outer world shifts. Through discipline, the mind gains freedom. Control of external circumstances is limited, but control of perception and choice is powerful. Stoicism teaches that a person cannot always prevent hardship, but a disciplined inner world ensures that hardship does not destroy peace. The individual becomes resilient, capable of facing challenge with calm and clarity. Discipline of the inner world also enhances decision-making. When the mind is trained, choices are deliberate rather than reactive. Stoic wisdom values reason as the guide for action. Impulsive reactions fade, replaced by measured responses aligned with principle. Life becomes more purposeful, actions more effective, and relationships more honest. By cultivating this inner discipline, the individual creates stability independent of fortune or circumstance. External praise, criticism, success, or failure cannot disturb the grounded mind. Stoicism teaches that true strength is measured not by external power, but by mastery of oneself. The disciplined inner world becomes a source of resilience, clarity, and enduring peace. Peace found within, not outside, is the quiet sanctuary of the mind. Stoic wisdom teaches that true tranquility does not depend on wealth, recognition, or the favor of others. External circumstances are unpredictable, and relying on them for contentment is fragile. A mind that finds peace within learns to remain steady despite change, loss, or challenge. Inner peace is cultivated through understanding, discipline, and self-mastery, and it is accessible to anyone willing to seek it. Many people look for happiness in the world around them. Approval, admiration, or material gain are often mistaken for security and fulfillment. Stoicism observes that these things are fleeting and unreliable. The world is full of change, and when contentment depends on it, the mind becomes restless. Those who seek peace within, however, turn attention inward, discovering a stability that no external event can destroy. Inner peace begins with acceptance. Stoic wisdom teaches that certain things are beyond control: the behavior of others, the outcomes of events, and the passage of time. Disturbance arises when the mind resists what cannot be changed. By accepting reality as it is, the individual frees energy to focus on what is within influence, their thoughts, choices, and actions. Acceptance does not mean passivity, it means acting with clarity, not with frustration over what cannot be altered. Reflection and self-awareness are essential to this inner tranquility. By observing thoughts and emotions, the mind learns patterns that cause unrest. Anger, fear, or longing often stem from misjudging the nature of events or overvaluing external approval. Stoicism teaches that recognizing these patterns allows the mind to respond with reason rather than habit. Each observation strengthens understanding and reduces the power of disturbances. Discipline of the mind supports lasting peace. A person who cultivates patience, self-control, and focus can endure hardships without losing stability. Stoic wisdom emphasizes that the mind is like a garden. Attention and care determine what grows. By nurturing reason, clarity, and virtue, and removing distractions, resentment, and unnecessary desire, the inner world becomes orderly and calm. This discipline allows the mind to remain centered regardless of external turmoil. Peace within also arises from aligning actions with values. Stoicism teaches that acting according to principles, rather than chasing popularity or fleeting pleasure, creates harmony between thought and deed. When decisions reflect integrity, the mind experiences satisfaction that external praise cannot provide. Internal consistency replaces dependence on the fluctuating opinions of others, creating enduring calm. Gratitude strengthens this inner peace. Recognizing what is present, rather than longing for what is absent, brings contentment. Stoic thought emphasizes sufficiency over excess, teaching that happiness is not found in accumulation but in awareness. Even in scarcity or difficulty, a mind attuned to gratitude finds richness and stability. Solitude nurtures peace as well. Time alone allows reflection, self-examination, and quiet understanding. Without constant input from others, the mind learns to listen to itself, distinguish important matters from trivial distractions, and develop resilience. Stoicism sees solitude not as loneliness, but as an opportunity to strengthen the inner citadel of calm. Peace found within is also resilient to adversity. External loss, insult, or misfortune may challenge the mind, but the person who is anchored internally experiences these events without panic or despair. Stoic wisdom teaches that disturbance comes not from events themselves, but from judgment of them. By adjusting judgment, the mind remains steady. This inner calm shapes relationships and actions. Decisions are made with clarity rather than impulse. Responses to conflict are measured rather than reactive. A peaceful mind influences the world calmly, not violently, and inspires steadiness in others without seeking to control them. Stoicism emphasizes that true influence comes from example and reason, not force or coercion. Through self-mastery, discipline, acceptance, and reflection, peace becomes an internal refuge. The mind no longer relies on applause, wealth, or circumstance for stability. Stoicism teaches that by cultivating this inner sanctuary, the individual achieves a life of balance, clarity, and enduring serenity.